Sophia Miller stared at the elegantly wrapped box sitting on her kitchen counter, her husband Marcus's words echoing in her mind. Whatever you do, don't open that thing. It's a trap. The gift had arrived that morning with a card that read, "Happy 32nd birthday, dear. Love, Patricia." Her mother-in-law's perfect cursive handwriting unmistakable. Inside that innocent-looking package was a DNA ancestry kit, and Sophia had no idea it was about to destroy everything she thought she knew about her family. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. The morning had started like any other Tuesday in their suburban Phoenix home. Sophia was rushing to get their 8-year-old daughter Emma ready for school while juggling her own preparation for another long day at the accounting firm. Marcus had already left for his construction job, kissing her goodbye with that same warm smile that had won her over 12 years ago when they met at Arizona State University. The doorbell rang just as Sophia was hunting for Emma's missing sneaker under the couch. A delivery driver stood on their doorstep holding an overnight package, the return address showing Patricia Blackwood's neat penmanship from her residence in Scottsdale. Sophia's stomach tightened slightly. Her mother-in-law rarely sent anything without an ulterior motive. After dropping Emma at Lincoln Elementary, Sophia returned home and placed the package on the granite countertop Marcus had installed himself last spring. The wrapping was impeccable, as always with Patricia, cream-colored paper with a subtle gold ribbon, the kind of presentation that probably cost more than most people's entire gift budget. A small card was tucked beneath the bow. Sophia opened the card first. Patricia's message was brief but loaded with her typical passive-aggressive undertones. "Dearest Sophia, I thought you might enjoy learning more about your heritage. Family history is so important, don't you think? Perhaps you'll discover some interesting surprises. With love and best wishes on your special day." The phrase "interesting surprises" made Sophia's skin crawl. In the 8 years since she'd married Marcus, Patricia had never missed an opportunity to remind Sophia that she wasn't quite good enough for her precious son. It started with subtle comments about Sophia's modest background. Her father had been a mechanic, her mother a school secretary, compared to the Blackwood family's construction empire that Marcus was set to inherit. When Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus during his lunch break, she immediately called him. "Hey babe, how's your birthday so far?" Marcus's voice carried that easy warmth that still made her heart skip. "Your mother sent me something," Sophia said, eyeing the package suspiciously. There was a pause. "What kind of something?" "I haven't opened it yet, but Marcus, the card, she wrote something about family history and interesting surprises. It's giving me a bad feeling." "Don't open it." The words came out sharp and immediate. "Sophia, I'm serious. Whatever's in there, don't open it." "What? Why not? It's just a birthday gift." "You don't understand. Last week, when I was at Mom's house fixing her kitchen faucet, she was on the phone with my Aunt Rebecca. I overheard them talking about you, about our family. Mom said something about finally getting answers and the truth coming out. I didn't think much of it then, but now." Sophia felt ice forming in her stomach. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying my mother doesn't do anything without a reason, and lately she's been asking weird questions about your parents, about where you grew up, about Emma. Sophia, I think she's planning something." "Planning what exactly?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but promise me you won't open that package until I get home. We'll figure this out together." After hanging up, Sophia stared at the innocent-looking gift for the rest of the afternoon. She tried to focus on work, but her mind kept circling back to Patricia's card and Marcus's warning. The Blackwood family had money and influence in Phoenix's construction industry, and Patricia wielded both weapons when she felt threatened. Sophia had always known Patricia disapproved of their marriage. It wasn't just about social class, though that was certainly part of it. Patricia had made it clear from the beginning that she'd had other plans for Marcus, specifically involving Catherine Hartwell, whose family owned half the real estate development projects in Scottsdale. Catherine was everything Sophia wasn't: blonde, perfectly polished, and born into the right social circles. But there was something deeper in Patricia's disapproval, something that went beyond mere snobbery. Sophia had caught her mother-in-law studying her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable, especially when Emma was around. Sometimes Patricia would make odd comments about family resemblances, or the lack thereof. When Emma came home from school that afternoon, she immediately noticed the fancy package. "Ooh, Mommy, is that for your birthday? Can we open it?" "Not yet, sweetheart. Daddy wants to be here when we open it." Emma, with the natural curiosity of an 8-year-old, examined the package from every angle. "It's from Grandma Patricia, isn't it? I can tell by the fancy wrapping. She always wraps things like they're going to be in a magazine." Sophia smiled despite her anxiety. Emma, with the natural curiosity of an 8-year-old, inherited her father's perceptiveness along with his dark hair and green eyes. She was a bright, inquisitive child who excelled in school and had inherited Sophia's love of puzzles and problem-solving. "Grandma Patricia likes things to look nice," Sophia agreed, though she wondered what Patricia would think if she knew how her own granddaughters sometimes referred to her gift-wrapping obsession. Marcus arrived home earlier than usual, his work boots still dusty from the job site. He looked at the package with the same wariness Sophia had felt all day. "You didn't open it?" "I promised I wouldn't." He kissed her forehead. "Good. Look, maybe I'm being paranoid, but something about this whole situation feels off. My mother has been acting strange lately, asking questions about your family history, about your parents. Last month, she even asked me if I'd ever noticed whether Emma looked like your side of the family." Sophia frowned. "That's an odd question." "That's what I thought. And then there was that conversation I overheard with Aunt Rebecca. They were talking about DNA tests and getting to the bottom of things. I should have told you sooner, but I hoped I was just reading too much into it." They stood together in their kitchen, the package between them like an unexploded bomb. The afternoon sun slanted through their windows, casting long shadows across the floor Sophia had mopped that morning in anticipation of a normal birthday celebration. "So, what do we do?" Sophia asked. Marcus ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture she recognized as his tell when he was processing something difficult. "We opened it, but together. And whatever's inside, whatever game my mother is playing, we face it as a team." Sophia nodded, though her hands were trembling slightly as she reached for the ribbon. As the cream-colored paper fell away, she revealed a sleek white box with a familiar logo, Ancestry Trace DNA, one of the most popular genetic testing companies. The box felt heavier than it should have been, weighted with implications Sophia was only beginning to understand. Inside, along with the standard testing kit, was another note from Patricia. "I've already ordered matching kits for Marcus and Emma. I thought it would be fun for the whole family to explore their roots together. The results should be quite illuminating." Marcus's face had gone pale. "She ordered kits for all of us?" Sophia's mind was racing. "Marcus, what does your mother think she's going to find?" But even as she asked the question, a cold certainty was settling in her chest. Patricia Blackwood didn't do anything without absolute confidence in the outcome. Whatever she expected these DNA results to reveal, she already knew the answer. The question was, did Sophia really want to find out what that answer was? That evening, Sophia couldn't eat the birthday dinner Marcus had prepared. The DNA kit sat unopened on their bedroom dresser, its presence filling their house like a toxic cloud. Emma had been disappointed when they explained they'd open presents later, but she'd eventually settled into her homework routine, unaware of the storm brewing around her. After putting Emma to bed, Sophia and Marcus sat at their kitchen table with cups of coffee that had long gone cold. The overhead light cast harsh shadows across both their faces, making them look older than their 30-something years. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Something I've never told anyone, not even you." Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. "What is it?" "When I was 16, I found some papers in my dad's home office. Medical records, legal documents, stuff that was supposed to be locked away." Marcus stared down at his hands. "One of them was a fertility report. My parents, they had trouble conceiving. The report showed that my dad, that Harold, couldn't have biological children." The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I might not be Harold Blackwood's biological son. But here's the thing, I never confronted them about it.
I was scared, and then Dad died in that car accident when I was 18, and it felt too late to ask questions. Sophia processed this revelation, her mind spinning with implications. So you think Patricia knows who your real father is? Maybe. Or maybe she suspects something else entirely. Marcus looked up at her with haunted eyes. Sophia, what if this isn't about me at all? What if she suspects something about you? About Emma?
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The suggestion was so absurd that Sophia almost laughed. Almost. But then she remembered Patricia's strange questions about family resemblances, her pointed comments about Emma's features, the way she sometimes studied Sophia's face like she was searching for something. "That's impossible," Sophia said. "You were there when Emma was born. You know she's yours." "Of course I know that. But my mother, she's always been suspicious of you. She's convinced you trapped me into marriage, that you were never good enough for our family. What if she thinks she can prove something with these tests?" Sophia stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked their backyard. The swing set Marcus had built for Emma's 6th birthday stood silhouetted against the neighbor's security light. Everything looked normal, peaceful, exactly as it had that morning. But nothing would ever be normal again. "There's something else," she said quietly. "Something I've never told you either." Marcus went very still. "What?" "When Emma was about 5, she needed blood work for that surgery to remove her tonsils. Remember how the nurse kept double-checking the results? She said Emma's blood type was unusual given our types. I thought it was just a mistake. Maybe they mixed up the samples." "What blood type is Emma?" "AB negative. The nurse said it was rare, only about 1% of the population. She kept asking if I was sure about my own blood type, like maybe I was wrong about being O positive." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. AB negative. That would require one parent to have A or AB, and the other to have B or AB. "You're O positive too," Sophia whispered. "I remember when you donated blood after that construction accident last year." They stared at each other across the kitchen, the implications hanging between them like a guillotine blade. According to basic genetics, 2 O-positive parents couldn't have an AB-negative child. It was impossible. "There has to be an explanation," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe the hospital made a mistake. Maybe they mixed up the blood samples." Sophia wanted to believe that, needed to believe it, but deep down, a cold certainty was growing. There were other things too, little inconsistencies she'd pushed aside over the years. The way Emma's pediatrician had commented on her unusual eye color, a shade of green that didn't quite match either parent. Her remarkable aptitude for music, despite neither Sophia nor Marcus having any musical talent. Her height, which put her in the 95th percentile despite both parents being average-sized. "Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." He nodded, though fear was written across his features. "Have you ever doubted that Emma is your daughter?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus looked away, staring at the family photos arranged on their kitchen wall. Their wedding day, Emma's first steps, family vacations to the Grand Canyon and San Diego. A life built on assumptions that might all be lies. "No," he said finally, "never. Emma is my daughter in every way that matters. But Sophia, what if my mother has somehow gotten information that we don't have?" Sophia's phone buzzed with a text message. The sender was Patricia. "I hope you received your birthday gift safely. I'm so excited to compare our family's results. I've already submitted my sample and Marcus's. I found some hair from his childhood bedroom. Amazing what modern science can tell us, don't you think?" "She already tested you," Sophia said, showing Marcus the message. "She used your hair from your old room." Marcus's face went white. "She's been planning this for months, maybe longer." Another text appeared. "I do hope you'll participate, Sophia. It would be such a shame if you chose not to. After all, we're all family here. Or are we?" The threat was barely veiled.
Patricia Blackwood had resources, connections, and a ruthless determination to protect what she saw as hers. If she suspected she had deceived her son about Emma's parentage, she wouldn't hesitate to destroy Sophia's life to prove it. "We need to get ahead of this," Marcus said, his construction worker's pragmatism kicking in. "We need to know what we're dealing with before she does." Sophia nodded, though her hands were shaking. "There's a lab downtown that does rush DNA testing. We could have the results in 24 hours instead of waiting weeks for the mail-in kit." "What about Emma?" "We tell her it's for a school project. She won't question it." But even as they made plans, Sophia felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump into an abyss with no idea how deep it went or what waited at the bottom. Every instinct screamed at her to grab Emma and run, to disappear before Patricia's carefully laid trap could snap shut around them. Yet she couldn't run from the truth, whatever it was. And somewhere deep in her heart, beneath all the fear and confusion, a terrible certainty was growing. There were things about Emma's conception and birth that Sophia had never fully examined, memories she'd buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself they were dreams. But DNA didn't lie, and tomorrow she would finally learn whether the life she'd built with Marcus was founded on truth or on the most devastating lie a woman could tell. The birthday gift from her mother-in-law wasn't just a DNA test. It was a reckoning 8 years in the making. The next morning, Sophia called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Marcus had already arranged to take the day off, telling his crew chief he had a family emergency. Neither of them had slept more than an hour, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling while Emma's peaceful breathing drifted from her room down the hall. At 8:30, they drove to Gene Tech Labs on Central Avenue, a sterile building that looked more like a bank than a place where lives could be shattered with a simple swab. Emma chattered excitedly in the back seat about her science project, completely oblivious to the tension radiating from her parents. "This is so cool, Mom! Wait until I tell my class about DNA. Miss Rodriguez is going to be so impressed." Sophia managed a weak smile in the rearview mirror. Emma's enthusiasm felt like salt in an open wound. How could she explain to her 8-year-old daughter that they weren't testing DNA for a school project, but to determine whether her entire identity was built on a lie? The laboratory technician, a middle-aged woman named Janet, efficiently collected their samples. "Rush processing will have your results ready by tomorrow afternoon," she explained, sealing the vials with clinical precision. 24 hours. Sophia had 24 hours before her world either stabilized or completely collapsed. They dropped Emma at school and returned home to find another delivery on their doorstep. This time, it wasn't from Patricia. The return address showed Rebecca Blackwood, Marcus's aunt who lived in Tempe. Sophia had always liked Rebecca more than Patricia. She was warmer, less judgmental, and had actually defended Sophia during some of Patricia's more cutting remarks at family gatherings.
Inside the package was a handwritten letter and a small photo album labeled Family Memories. Marcus read the letter aloud. "Dear Marcus and Sophia, I know what Patricia is trying to do, and I can't stay silent anymore. There are things about our family that you need to know before you get caught in her web of manipulation. The photos in this album tell a story that Patricia has spent years trying to hide. Look carefully at the man in the pictures with your grandfather, Thomas. His name was Vincent DeLuca. You'll understand why this matters soon enough. I'm sorry I waited so long to tell you the truth. Call me when you're ready to hear everything. Love, Aunt Rebecca." Sophia opened the album with trembling fingers. The black and white photographs dated back to the 1950s and 60s, showing various family gatherings and celebrations. But as she flipped through the pages, one man appeared consistently in photos with Marcus's grandfather, Thomas Blackwood. A tall, dark-haired man with striking green eyes and angular features that looked remarkably familiar. "Marcus," she whispered, pointing to a photograph of Vincent DeLuca laughing at what appeared to be a backyard barbecue. "Look at his eyes. Look at his face." Marcus leaned closer, and Sophia watched the blood drain from his features. Vincent DeLuca had the same distinctive green eyes as Emma, the same angular jawline, even the same way of tilting his head when he smiled. The resemblance was unmistakable.
Who is this guy? Marcus asked, though his voice suggested he was beginning to piece together the answer. Sophia turned the page and found a newspaper clipping tucked between the photos. The headline read, "Local businessman Vincent DeLuca dies in industrial accident." The article, dated September 1967, described DeLuca as a successful contractor who had worked closely with Thomas Blackwood's construction company. But it was the photograph accompanying the article that made Sophia's heart stop. Vincent DeLuca had been devastatingly handsome, with the kind of classic Italian features that could have graced magazine covers. But more importantly, he looked exactly like an older version of Emma. Rebecca said to call her, Marcus said quietly. They drove to Rebecca's modest ranch house in Tempe, leaving Emma with Marcus's reliable neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who often watched her after school. Rebecca answered the door before they could knock, as if she'd been waiting by the window. I wondered when this day would come, she said, ushering them into her living room. Patricia has been planning this for months, ever since Emma started looking more and more like Vincent. Aunt Rebecca, what are you talking about? Who is Vincent DeLuca? Rebecca settled into her recliner, looking older than her 68 years. Vincent was your grandmother Elizabeth's lover. Your grandfather Thomas knew about the affair, but he chose to look the other way because Vincent was brilliant at business and helped make the Blackwood Construction Company what it is today. Sophia felt dizzy. Are you saying Marcus's father Harold was actually Vincent's son? No, dear. Harold was definitely Thomas's biological child, but there was another child born from that affair in 1958. Rebecca paused, studying Marcus's face carefully. Patricia was born 7 months after Elizabeth's premature delivery. She's Vincent DeLuca's daughter, not Thomas Blackwood's. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Sophia grabbed Marcus's hand as the implications crashed over them. So, Patricia is actually Vincent's daughter? Marcus said slowly. Which means Emma inherited Vincent's distinctive features through Patricia's bloodline. But here's what Patricia doesn't know and what she's desperately trying to prove with those DNA tests. Rebecca stood and walked to a bookshelf, retrieving a manila folder stuffed with documents. After Vincent died in 1967, Elizabeth was devastated. She'd been planning to leave Thomas and marry Vincent, but the accident changed everything. What she didn't know was that Vincent had been married before he came to Phoenix. He had a family back in Chicago, a wife and daughter who died in a house fire in 1952. Sophia's blood turned to ice. What was the daughter's name? Marie DeLuca. She would have been about 25 in 1967, if she'd lived. Rebecca opened the folder and pulled out a death certificate. But here's the interesting thing. The Chicago Fire Department never found her body. Only her mother's remains were recovered. Marcus leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Marie DeLuca didn't die in that fire. I think she escaped, changed her identity, and eventually made her way to Phoenix. Rebecca looked directly at Sophia. I think Marie DeLuca became Maria Santos, the woman who worked as a secretary at Lincoln Elementary School, the woman who became your mother. The room spun around Sophia. Her mother Maria had always been secretive about her past, claiming her family died when she was young and she had no relatives. She'd met Sophia's father Tony when she was 26, already established in Phoenix with a job and an apartment, but no history anyone could verify. That's impossible, Sophia whispered. My mother would have told me. Would she? A young woman escaping a fire that killed her family, possibly running from something else we don't know about? She might have thought she was protecting you by never mentioning her real identity. Rebecca pulled out another document, a Social Security application from 1968. Maria Santos applied for her Social Security number when she was 26. That's unusual for someone born in America. Most people get their numbers as children or teenagers. Sophia stared at the application, her mother's familiar handwriting confirming details that now seemed fabricated. The address listed was a boarding house that had been torn down decades ago. The previous employer was a company that Rebecca had already confirmed never existed. If this is true, Sophia said slowly, then Emma isn't just Patricia's granddaughter through Marcus, she'd also be Vincent DeLuca's great-granddaughter through my mother's line. Double inheritance, Rebecca nodded, which would explain why Emma looks so much like Vincent and why Patricia has been so suspicious. She probably notices the family resemblance but can't figure out how it's possible. Marcus was shaking his head. This is insane. You're saying Sophia and I are both descended from the same man? Not directly. Patricia and Sophia would be step-cousins if I'm right about Maria's identity, but the genetic connection through Vincent would be strong enough to show up in DNA testing.
Sophia's phone buzzed with an email notification. Her hand shook as she opened it and saw the message from Gene Tech Labs. Your DNA analysis results are now available. The moment of truth had arrived, and Sophia realized that no matter what those results showed, nothing would ever be the same again. Sophia's finger hovered over the secure link, her entire body trembling. Marcus moved closer on Rebecca's couch, his arm wrapping around her shoulders as if he could shield her from whatever truth waited on the other side of that click. Whatever it says, he whispered, we face it together. Sophia pressed the link. The first page is loaded with Emma's results. Blood type, AB negative, exactly as they've known. But it was the genetic marker section that made Sophia's breath catch in her throat. The report showed unusual DNA patterns, markers that indicated both parents carried rare genetic variants typically found in Italian lineages. Look at this, Sophia said, pointing to a section labeled Genetic Inheritance Patterns. The report showed Emma had inherited 2 copies of several rare alleles, one from each parent, but the statistical analysis suggested both parents carried genetic markers from the same ancestral population group. Marcus's results appeared next. The paternity test was definitive, 99.97% probability that he was Emma's biological father. But buried in the detailed genetic analysis was something far more disturbing. Marcus carried genetic markers consistent with Northern Italian ancestry, despite the Blackwood family's documented English heritage. Then came Sophia's results, and the room fell silent. The report showed Sophia carried identical genetic markers to Marcus in 12 separate locations, far too many to be coincidental. At the bottom of the page, a red-flagged alert read, "Genetic similarity suggests subjects may be related within 2 to 3 generations." Step-cousins, Rebecca said quietly, just as I suspected. But Sophia was still reading, her face growing paler with each line. There's more. Look at this maternal lineage analysis. The mitochondrial DNA results trace Sophia's maternal line back to a specific Italian region, the same area Vincent DeLuca's immigration records showed as his birthplace. But it was the comparison database that delivered the final blow. The system automatically cross-references with other samples in their database, Sophia read aloud. It found a potential familial match. She scrolled down to see the match details. Sample ID, PB 2024AZ, relationship, niece-aunt, confidence level, 94.3%. Marcus went rigid, PB 2024AZ, Patricia Blackwood, 2024 Arizona. My mother already submitted her DNA, and the system matched you as her niece. The implications crashed down on them like an avalanche. If Sophia was Patricia's niece, and Patricia was Vincent DeLuca's daughter, then Sophia was definitely Vincent's granddaughter, which meant Rebecca had been right. Maria Santos was actually Marie DeLuca, Vincent's daughter who supposedly died in the Chicago fire. We need to confront my mother, Sophia said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. She's been lying to me my entire life. Rebecca stood up, moving to another shelf where she retrieved a small wooden box. Before you do that, there's something else you need to see. She opened the box and pulled out a tarnished silver locket. This belonged to Vincent's wife, Catherine DeLuca. Vincent gave it to Elizabeth before he died, saying it was the only thing he had left of his first family. Sophia opened the locket with shaking hands. Inside was a tiny photograph of a young woman holding a baby girl. The woman looked exactly like an older version of Sophia's mother,
and the baby had the same distinctive eyes that Emma had inherited. "That's Marie DeLuca and her daughter," Rebecca said softly. "Marie had a baby before the fire, a daughter named Anna who was only 6 months old when the house burned down." Sophia's world tilted on its axis. Anna DeLuca, A.D. My mother's initials before she married my father were A.D., Anna D'Angelo, but she told me D'Angelo was her maiden name. Anna DeLuca became Anna D'Angelo, then Maria Santos when she came to Phoenix, Rebecca said. "Your mother didn't just change her name once, she changed it twice, creating layer after layer of false identity." Marcus was studying the locket photograph. "Sophia, look at the baby's hands. Look at her fingers." Sophia looked closer and gasped. The baby in the photograph had the same distinctive birthmark on her left pinky that Sophia had, a small crescent-shaped mark that she'd always been told was just a random quirk of genetics. "I need to call my mother," Sophia said, her voice barely audible. But even as she pulled out her phone, another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Her mother Maria had always known things she shouldn't have known. Details about construction work when Sophia started dating Marcus, familiarity with old Phoenix neighborhoods that predated her supposed arrival in the city, and an inexplicable nervousness whenever the Blackwood name came up in conversation. Sophia's phone rang before she could dial. The caller ID showed Mom. "Sophia, honey, we need to talk." Maria's voice was strained, older sounding than usual. "I just got a call from someone claiming to be Patricia Blackwood. She said you took a DNA test." "Mom, where are you?" "I'm at the airport. I'm catching a flight to visit your Aunt Carmen in San Diego. I thought it might be a good time for a vacation." Sophia felt anger rising in her chest. "Don't you dare run away from this, not again." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Maria spoke again, her voice was different, defeated, exhausted. "How much do you know? I know Vincent DeLuca was my grandfather. I know you're really Marie DeLuca, not Maria Santos. I know you faked your own death in Chicago and have been lying to me my entire life." Maria's sob carried clearly through the phone. "Oh, Sophia, I was trying to protect you. I was trying to protect both of us." "From what? What were you running from in Chicago?" "Not what. Who?" Maria's voice dropped to a whisper. "Vincent wasn't just a businessman, Sophia. He was connected to some very dangerous people. When Catherine and I died in that fire, it wasn't an accident. Someone wanted Vincent's family gone, and they thought they'd succeeded." Sophia's blood ran cold. "Someone tried to kill you?" Vincent had gotten involved with the wrong crowd and borrowed money from people who didn't accept late payments. When he couldn't pay them back, they decided to send a message by targeting his family. I barely escaped with my life, and only because a neighbor saw the smoke and got me out through a back window. But I had to let everyone believe I was dead, including Vincent. It was the only way to stay safe. Rebecca was listening intently, her face grave. She gestured for the phone, and Sophia reluctantly handed it over. "Marie, this is Rebecca Blackwood. We need you to come back to Phoenix. Patricia is planning something that could destroy all of our families, and running away won't solve anything this time."
Rebecca! Oh God, how much does she know? She suspects Sophia is connected to Vincent somehow, but she doesn't know the full truth yet. If you come back now, we can control how this information comes out, but if you run, she'll dig deeper, and she has the resources to uncover everything. There was another long pause. Finally, Maria's voice came through the speaker, resigned but resolute. "I'll catch the next flight back. But Rebecca, you need to understand, if the wrong people find out I'm alive, we're all in danger, not just from Patricia, but from people who have been looking for Marie DeLuca for over 50 years. As Sophia ended the call, she realized that Patricia's birthday gift hadn't just revealed family secrets, it had potentially awakened ghosts from a past her mother had spent decades trying to bury. And now, everyone Sophia loved was about to be caught in the crossfire of a war that began long before she was born. Sophia sat in Rebecca's kitchen at 3 in the morning, staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago.
Marcus paced by the window, occasionally peering through the blinds at the empty street outside. They'd been too afraid to go home, too afraid that Patricia might be watching their house, waiting to spring whatever trap she'd carefully constructed. Emma was safe at Mrs. Chen's house, told only that Mommy and Daddy had to handle some grown-up business and would pick her up tomorrow. The innocent lie felt like acid in Sophia's throat. Rebecca emerged from her bedroom wearing a robe, her silver hair disheveled from a sleep that had clearly eluded her as well. "Any word from your mother?" Sophia checked her phone for the 100th time. Her flight landed an hour ago. She's driving straight here. The sound of tires on gravel made them all freeze. Marcus moved to the front window, his body tense. Dark sedan pulling into the driveway. Arizona plates. Sophia's heart hammered as she recognized her mother's rental car. But as Maria stepped out, Sophia barely recognized the woman who had raised her. Gone was the soft, motherly figure she'd known her entire life. This woman moved with the careful awareness of someone who'd spent decades looking over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the street before she hurried to the front door. Rebecca let her in quickly, immediately locking the door behind her. Maria looked older than her 62 years, stress etched into every line of her face. But when she looked at Sophia, her eyes held a pain that went deeper than mere exhaustion. "I'm sorry," Maria whispered, pulling Sophia into a fierce embrace. "I'm so sorry for all the lies." Sophia held her mother tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume mixed with something else. Fear. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." Maria sat heavily at Rebecca's kitchen table, her hands shaking as she accepted a cup of tea. "Vincent DeLuca was my father, but he was never just a contractor. Back in Chicago in the 1950s, he worked for the Torino family, one of the most powerful crime organizations in the Midwest." Rebecca leaned forward. "He never told any of us that." "He wouldn't have. By the time he came to Phoenix, he was trying to go legitimate. But you don't just walk away from people like the Torinos. They had invested money in Vincent's Chicago operations, and when he left, he took their investment with him." Sophia felt sick. So he stole from the mob? He considered it payment for years of loyal service. They considered it theft. For 7 years, they let him think he'd gotten away clean. Then, in 1967, they sent collectors. Maria's voice grew distant, as if she were watching the events unfold from somewhere far away. "I was 25, living in a small apartment above my father's old auto shop with my 6-month-old daughter. Anna was the light of my life. Red hair like her father, but Vincent's green eyes." Sophia's breath caught. "My father? Who was Anna's father?" "A man named David Santos. He was a good man, worked construction, and wanted to marry me. But he died in a work accident when Anna was 3 months old. I never got the chance to tell Vincent he had a granddaughter." The pieces were falling into place with devastating clarity. Sophia was Anna DeLuca, Marie DeLuca's daughter, Vincent DeLuca's great-granddaughter. But she was also David Santos's daughter, which explained why she'd never questioned her father Tony's adoption of her when he married Maria. "The night they came for us," Maria continued, "I was putting Anna to bed when I smelled smoke. I thought it was just someone burning leaves in their yard. But the smell got stronger, and then I heard men's voices downstairs." Marcus stopped pacing. "How many men?" "3, maybe 4. I heard one of them say, 'Make sure it looks like an accident.' That's when I knew we had to run." Maria's voice broke. "I grabbed Anna and climbed out the bedroom window onto the fire escape. The whole first floor was already in flames." Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed Maria's hand. "How did you escape?" "Pure luck. There was construction happening on the building next door, scaffolding and ladders everywhere. I climbed down with Anna and hid in the construction site until the fire department arrived. When I saw them bringing out Catherine's body, I realized they thought Anna and I had died in the fire too." Sophia's head was spinning. "So you let everyone believe you were dead? What choice did I have? If the Torinos knew I was alive, they'd keep hunting us. Anna was just a baby. She deserved a chance at a normal life." Maria pulled a worn envelope from her purse. "I had some money saved, and I took Catherine's jewelry from a safety deposit Vincent didn't know she had. It was enough to disappear." She opened the envelope and spread several documents on the table: fake birth certificates, social security cards, even a fraudulent marriage certificate. I bought these from a man in Chicago who specialized in new identities. Marie DeLuca died in that fire. Anna DeLuca died too. We became Maria and Anna Santos, Catherine's nieces from California who'd come to settle her estate.
Sophia stared at a birth certificate with her infant photo attached. Anna Santos, born in Los Angeles to Maria Santos and the late David Santos. It was a masterpiece of deception, complete with forged hospital records and witness signatures. I came to Phoenix because I knew Vincent was here, but I never intended to contact him. I just wanted to be close to something familiar, somewhere I might understand the local connections if the Torinos ever came looking. Maria's eyes filled with tears. But then Vincent died in that accident in 1967, just 2 months after I arrived. I thought maybe we were finally safe. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Sophia whispered. "Because I hoped you'd never need to know. I met your father Tony when you were 2 years old. He was a good man who wanted to give us a real family, a normal life. When he adopted you, you became Sophia Miller, and Anna Santos could disappear forever." Rebecca had been listening intently. "But Patricia's investigation changes everything." Maria nodded grimly. "If she's already connected Sophia to Vincent through DNA, it's only a matter of time before she digs deeper. And if she publishes her findings anywhere online, there are people who monitor genetic databases looking for exactly this kind of connection." Marcus stopped pacing abruptly. "What kind of people?" "The Torino family didn't disappear when Vincent died. They passed their business down through generations, just like any other family enterprise. If they discover that Vincent's granddaughter is alive and living in Phoenix, they might decide to finish what they started in 1967. Sophia's phone buzzed with a text message. The sender was an unknown number. "Interesting DNA results. We should meet to discuss your family history. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Desert Ridge Mall Food Court. Come alone. PB." Maria read the message over Sophia's shoulder, and all color drained from her face. "She wants to meet with you." "I'm not going alone," Marcus said immediately. "You can't go at all," Rebecca said firmly. "This is exactly what Patricia wants, to get you isolated where she can control the conversation." But Sophia was already standing up, a strange calm settling over her. "Actually, I think I should go, but not alone and not unprepared." She looked at her mother, seeing Marie DeLuca for the first time beneath Maria Santos's carefully constructed facade. "It's time to stop running from our past, but we're going to face it on our terms, not hers." Maria's eyes widened as she recognized something dangerous in her daughter's expression, something that looked disturbingly like Vincent DeLuca's legendary determination when cornered. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and Patricia Blackwood had no idea what she'd just unleashed. The next morning, Sophia stood in front of Rebecca's bathroom mirror, studying her reflection with new eyes. Now that she knew the truth, she could see Vincent DeLuca's features staring back at her. The angular jawline, the way her eyebrows arched when she was thinking, even the stubborn set of her mouth that Marcus had always teased her about. How had she never noticed the resemblance before? Downstairs, Rebecca was making phone calls. She'd spent the early morning hours contacting old family friends, people who had known Vincent in the 1960s and might remember details that could help them understand exactly what they were dealing with. "I found someone," Rebecca announced as Sophia entered the kitchen. "Frank Morrison. He worked construction with Vincent and my father back in the day. He's agreed to meet with us before you face Patricia." Frank Morrison turned out to be a weathered man in his 80s who lived in a modest apartment complex in Glendale. His handshake was still firm despite his age, and his eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who'd survived decades in a dangerous business. "Vincent DeLuca," he said, settling into his recliner with a grunt. "Now there's a name I haven't heard spoken aloud in 50 years. Smart man, tougher than nails, but he made one fatal mistake." Marcus leaned forward. "What mistake?" "He fell in love. Vincent was the kind of man who could compartmentalize everything, keep his Chicago business separate from his Phoenix life,
keep his legitimate construction work separate from his other activities. But when he met your grandmother Elizabeth, he started thinking he could have it all. Frank pulled out a photo album similar to the one Rebecca had shown them, but these pictures told a different story. They showed Vincent at construction sites, but also at private meetings in expensive restaurants, shaking hands with men in tailored suits who looked nothing like legitimate businessmen. See this picture? Frank pointed to a photo of Vincent standing next to a short, heavy-set man with cold eyes. That's Salvatore Jr., son of the Chicago boss. He came to Phoenix in 1966 to check on Vincent's operations. Sophia studied the photo. Something about Salvatore's stance, the way he held himself, reminded her of someone. Frank, do you know if Salvatore had any children? Oh yes, son named Michael, took over the family business in the 1980s. Grandson named Anthony, who runs things now. Why do you ask? Sophia's blood turned to ice. Because I think I've seen that face before. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through recent photos until she found what she was looking for. A picture from Emma's school carnival last month. In the background, partially obscured by other parents, was a man who bore an unmistakable resemblance to the Salvatore in Frank's photograph. Frank, do you know what Anthony Torino looks like now? Frank squinted at Sophia's phone screen, then went very still. That's him. Older, but that's definitely Anthony Torino. Where did you take this picture? Lincoln Elementary School, Emma's school. Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. He's been watching us. Marcus grabbed the phone, studying the image. How long has he been in Phoenix? Could be weeks, could be months, Frank said grimly. These people are patient. They don't make moves until they're absolutely certain of their target. Rebecca was already reaching for her car keys. We need to get Emma, now. But Sophia's phone was ringing. The caller ID showed Lincoln Elementary School. Mrs. Miller, this is Principal Davidson. I'm calling because Emma wasn't in her classroom when attendance was taken this morning. Her teacher said a man came to pick her up early, saying there was a family emergency. He had proper identification and knew Emma's full name, so we released her to him. The phone slipped from Sophia's numb fingers. Marcus caught it, his face white with panic. What did this man look like? He demanded. Well-dressed, professional. He said he was Emma's uncle, visiting from out of state. Emma seemed to know him. She waved and went with him willingly. Sophia's legs gave out, and she sank in Frank's couch. They had Emma. Somehow, Anthony Torino had convinced her daughter that he was family, and Emma had gone with him without question. They won't hurt her, Frank said quickly, though his voice lacked conviction. She's leverage. They want to flush you out, make you come to them. Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number that had sent Patricia's message. Your daughter is safe and enjoying ice cream. Desert Ridge Mall, 2 p.m., food court. Come alone, or the little girl learns about her great-grandfather's debts.
They know about Maria, Rebecca breathed. They know everything. But Sophia was no longer the terrified woman who had opened Patricia's birthday gift just 2 days ago. Rage was burning through her veins, cold and focused. They had taken her child, threatened her family, and turned her entire life into a lie. The running was over. We're not going in blind, she said, her voice deadly calm. Frank, do you still have contacts in law enforcement? A few, retired FBI agents who worked organized crime cases in the 1980s. Why? Because we're going to give Anthony Torino exactly what he wants, a face-to-face meeting with Vincent DeLuca's family. But he's going to get more than he bargained for. Sophia turned to her mother. Maria, you said you kept Catherine's jewelry when you fled Chicago. Do you still have it? Maria nodded, confusion evident in her eyes. Some of it. Why? Because Vincent didn't just steal money from the Torinos. If he was running their Phoenix operations, he had to be keeping records, evidence, something they'd want back after all these years. Sophia's mind was racing, pieces falling into place. Catherine's jewelry, was any of it unusual? Anything that might not have been just jewelry? Maria's eyes widened with understanding.
There was a locket, different from the one Rebecca showed us, heavy, with an inscription that never made sense. It said, "For my treasure, VD." I always thought it was romantic, But Vincent was too practical for meaningless romance, Frank finished. That locket probably contains information worth killing for. Rebecca stood up. So we have something they want, and they have something we want. But Sophia, these aren't people you negotiate with. They're killers. Then we don't negotiate, Sophia said. We trap them the same way they trapped us. But first, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. She looked at Frank. I need you to call your FBI contacts. Tell them Anna DeLuca is alive, and the Torino family has kidnapped her daughter. That will bring federal agents down on all of us, Marcus warned. Good. Let them come. I'm done hiding from the truth. Sophia stood up, every muscle in her body coiled with determination. Patricia wanted to expose our family secrets? Fine, let's expose everything. The mob connections, the fake identities, the 50-year cover-up, all of it. She looked around the room at the three people who represented different parts of her fractured identity. Rebecca, the aunt by marriage she'd never known she had. Frank, a connection to the grandfather whose legacy had shaped her entire life. And Maria, the mother who'd sacrificed everything to give her a normal childhood. They think they're hunting the last member of Vincent DeLuca's family, Sophia said, but they made one crucial mistake. They assumed I'd be as easy to intimidate as my grandfather was to kill. Her phone buzzed with another message. 1 hour until the meeting. Don't disappoint us. Sophia smiled, and for the first time in her life, she saw Vincent DeLuca looking back at her from her own reflection. The hunter had become the hunted, but the prey was about to show them exactly whose blood ran through her veins. Let's go get my daughter back. The Desert Ridge Mall food court buzzed with typical afternoon activity. Families grabbing lunch, teenagers clustering around tables, the constant hum of conversation and clinking silverware. To any casual observer, it looked like an ordinary Tuesday. But Sophia knew better. She'd spotted at least 3 men in suits positioned strategically around the perimeter, their eyes constantly scanning the crowd. She sat alone at a central table, exactly as instructed, though she was far from defenseless. Frank's FBI contacts had moved quickly. Special Agent Jennifer Walsh sat at a nearby table disguised as a soccer mom, while 2 other agents posed as mall security guards. Maria waited in the parking garage with Rebecca, ready to move when signaled. At exactly 2 p.m., Patricia Blackwood approached Sophia's table, but she wasn't alone. Walking beside her was a distinguished man in his 50s, with the same cold eyes Sophia recognized from Frank's photographs, Anthony Torino. Sophia, Patricia said, sliding into the chair across from her. I'm so glad you decided to join us. This is my friend Anthony. We've been having the most fascinating conversation about your family history. Anthony Torino studied Sophia with the calculating gaze of a predator. You look remarkably like your great-grandfather. Vincent had the same defiant expression right before he died. Where's my daughter? Sophia's voice was steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Emma is safe, enjoying a movie at the theater upstairs. My associate is keeping her entertained. She gestured toward the upper level. She's a charming child, very trusting. Patricia leaned forward, her perfect composure cracking slightly. Do you have any idea what you've cost me, Sophia? 8 years of wondering why my son chose you, why my granddaughter looked nothing like either parent, why something always felt wrong about your family. What have I cost you? Sophia's anger flared. You sent me a DNA kit as a trap. You violated my privacy, my family's privacy, because you couldn't accept that your son married beneath your standards. Standards? Patricia laughed bitterly. My dear, this has nothing to do with social class. This has to do with the fact that my family has spent 50 years trying to distance itself from Vincent DeLuca's criminal connections. Do you know what it would do to Blackwood Construction's reputation if it came out that we're related to organized crime? Anthony Torino cleared his throat. Which brings us to why we're all here. Mrs. Miller, or should I say Miss DeLuca, my family has unfinished business with yours. Sophia reached into her purse and pulled out Catherine's heavy locket, setting it on the table between them. Both Patricia and Anthony went very still. Sophia opened the locket to reveal not a photograph, but a small micro SD card tucked into a hidden compartment. Vincent was smarter than you gave him credit for. He kept insurance. Anthony's composure cracked. Where did you get that? My mother saved it when she escaped the fire, you said. 50 years of evidence, Anthony. Names, dates, financial records, photographs. Everything Vincent collected during his years working for your grandfather. Patricia was staring at the locket in horror. You're saying Vincent was actually a federal informant, Sophia finished. He'd been feeding information to the FBI for 2 years before he died. The Phoenix operation wasn't just about going legitimate, it was about bringing down the entire Torino organization. Special Agent Walsh stood up from her nearby table, her badge now visible. Anthony Torino, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, and conspiracy charges dating back to 1967. The food court erupted into controlled chaos as federal agents moved in from all directions. Anthony's men reached for their weapons, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Patricia sat frozen, watching her carefully constructed world collapse around her. The fire in Chicago wasn't just an assassination attempt, Sophia continued, her voice carrying over the commotion. It was a desperate attempt to destroy evidence, but Vincent was too smart. He'd already copied everything and hidden it where only his family would think to look. Agent Walsh handcuffed Anthony as he snarled at Sophia. This isn't over. The Torino family has a long memory.
Actually, it is over, Sophia said calmly, because as of this morning, the remaining members of your organization are being arrested in Chicago, New York, and Las Vegas. Vincent's evidence didn't just incriminate your grandfather, it documented 50 years of criminal activity. Your family's reign ends today. Maria appeared at Sophia's side, having been signaled by Agent Walsh. Patricia looked up at her with shock and recognition. Marie DeLuca, Patricia whispered, you're supposed to be dead. Marie DeLuca died in that fire, Maria said quietly, but Anna DeLuca's mother survived to make sure Vincent's sacrifice meant something. Sophia stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Where's Emma? Agent Walsh spoke into her radio, and within minutes, another agent appeared with Emma, who ran into Sophia's arms, chattering excitedly about the really nice man who'd bought her popcorn and let her watch 2 movies. Mommy, the man said he was Uncle Anthony and that you were having a grown-up meeting. Did I miss your birthday party? Sophia held her daughter tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. No, sweetheart, the party's just beginning. As Patricia was led away in handcuffs, she turned back to Sophia one last time. This won't save your marriage, you know. Marcus will never forgive you for the lies. But Sophia was no longer listening. Marcus appeared through the crowd, having waited in the parking structure with Rebecca until the all-clear signal. His face was pale but determined as he approached his wife and daughter. Is it over? He asked. Sophia nodded, still holding Emma. The Torinos are finished. Patricia's facing charges for conspiracy and obstruction of justice, and the truth is finally out. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then pulled both her and Emma into his arms. Then we start over, all of us. No more lies, no more running. 3 months later, Sophia stood in the backyard of their Phoenix home, watching Emma play on the swing set while Marcus grilled hamburgers. The DNA test results that had seemed so devastating now sat framed on their mantel, not as evidence of deception, but as proof of a family that had survived against impossible odds. The Blackwood Construction Company had been sold to pay legal fees and victim restitution. Marcus had started his own small contracting business, free from his mother's shadow for the first time in his life.
Sophia had kept her job at the accounting firm, though she'd been promoted after her testimony helped federal prosecutors untangle 50 years of financial crimes. Maria, who had legally reclaimed her birth name of Marie DeLuca, had moved into a small apartment nearby. She was slowly rebuilding her relationship with Sophia, sharing stories about Vincent and Catherine that painted a more complex picture of the grandfather Sophia had never known. "Mommy," Emma called out, "Mrs. Chen says I look like the lady in the old picture, the one with the fancy necklace." Sophia smiled, touching the simple gold chain around her neck, a new locket Marcus had given her for their 9th wedding anniversary. Inside was a photo of Emma, and beneath it, a small inscription, "For our treasure, with love." Patricia's birthday gift had been intended as a trap, a way to expose what she saw as Sophia's deception. Instead, it had freed an entire family from decades of lies and brought justice to victims of crimes that had gone unpunished for half a century. The weeks following the arrests had brought unexpected developments that none of them could have anticipated. While Sophia thought the story was over, the FBI investigation had uncovered layers of corruption that stretched far beyond the Torino family's criminal enterprise. Agent Walsh had contacted Sophia repeatedly, explaining that Vincent's evidence cache had exposed a network of legitimate businesses that had been laundering money for decades. Banks, real estate companies, even city officials in both Phoenix and Chicago were being investigated. The locket hadn't just contained information about one crime family, it had documented an entire shadow economy. "Your great-grandfather was more than just an informant," Agent Walsh had explained during one of their debriefing sessions. "He was building a case that would have revolutionized how federal agencies investigate organized crime. His death set back FBI operations by at least a decade." The media attention had been overwhelming at first. Local news stations had picked up the story of the Phoenix woman who'd brought down a 50-year-old crime syndicate, and suddenly Sophia found herself fielding interview requests from national networks. She declined them all, wanting to protect Emma from the spotlight, but the attention had brought unexpected benefits. Other families who'd been victimized by the Torino organization had come forward, sharing their own stories of intimidation and violence. A support group had formed, led by a woman named Catherine Phillips, whose father had been murdered by Salvatore Torino Sr. in 1963. These families had lived with fear and unanswered questions for decades, and Vincent's evidence was finally giving them closure. The most surprising development had come from Marcus's side of the family. With Patricia facing federal charges, other relatives had emerged from the woodwork, sharing stories about the Blackwood family that painted a very different picture from Patricia's carefully curated version. Marcus's cousin David, whom Patricia had always dismissed as the black sheep of the family, had revealed that he'd been investigating the family's finances for years. He'd suspected Patricia of embezzling money from the construction company to fund her lavish lifestyle, but had never been able to prove it. The FBI investigation had confirmed his suspicions. Patricia had been skimming profits for over a decade. "She always acted like she was protecting the family's reputation," David had told them over dinner at Rebecca's house, "but she was really protecting herself. If anyone had looked too closely at our business dealings, they would have discovered her theft." The revelation had been particularly painful for Marcus, who'd spent years feeling guilty about not being good enough for his mother's standards. Learning that Patricia had been a criminal herself while judging Sophia's family had shattered any remaining loyalty he felt toward her. Emma, meanwhile, had handled the upheaval with the resilience that only children possess. She'd been fascinated by the revelation that she was descended from someone she dramatically referred to as a secret agent grandfather, and had started a family tree project for school that traced both sides of her ancestry. "Look, Mommy," she'd said one evening, spreading her poster board across the kitchen table. "Great-great-grandpa Vincent was like a superhero who fought bad guys, and great-grandma Marie was like a spy who had to change her name to stay safe. And Grandma Patricia was like a villain who got caught by the FBI." Sophia had smiled at her daughter's simplified but surprisingly accurate assessment. Emma's teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had been so impressed with the project that she'd asked Emma to present it to the entire school as an example of how family history could be more complex and interesting than it initially appeared. The financial aftermath had been significant but manageable.
The sale of Blackwood Construction had generated enough money to pay restitution to the families who'd been harmed by Patricia's embezzlement, and Marcus had received a substantial settlement from his mother's estate. They'd used the money to pay off their mortgage and establish college funds for Emma, but had chosen to maintain their modest lifestyle. Sophia had been offered a position with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, helping to trace money laundering operations similar to the one Vincent had documented. The work was challenging and meaningful, allowing her to use her accounting skills to pursue justice for other families who'd been victimized by organized crime. She'd accepted the position on a part-time basis, allowing her to maintain a better work-life balance. Marcus's new contracting business had thrived, partly due to the positive publicity from the case, but mostly because of his reputation for honest work and fair pricing. He'd hired several employees, including 2 former Blackwood construction workers who'd lost their jobs when the company was dissolved. The business was growing steadily, and Marcus had started discussing plans to expand into commercial construction. Marie had surprised everyone by writing a memoir about her experiences. Hidden in Plain Sight, A Daughter's Journey from Chicago Fire to Federal Justice, had been picked up by a major publisher and was scheduled for release the following year. She donated the advance money to a charity that helped families of organized crime victims, but the process of writing had been therapeutic for her. For 50 years, I lived in fear of my past, she told Sophia during one of their weekly coffee meetings. Now I realize that my past is what gave me the strength to protect you and create a new life. I'm proud of who I was and who I became. The relationship between Sophia and Marie had deepened considerably. They'd started taking weekend trips together, visiting places from Marie's childhood that she'd described in her book. These excursions had helped Sophia understand her mother's journey and had given Marie opportunities to reclaim parts of her identity that she'd buried for decades. Rebecca had become an unexpected anchor for the family, serving as a bridge between their complicated past and hopeful future. She'd moved into Patricia's former house, purchased at a steep discount during the estate sale, and had transformed it into a gathering place for the extended family. Sunday dinners at Rebecca's had become a tradition, bringing together Marcus's cousins, Sophia's coworkers, and Emma's friends in a warm, chaotic celebration of chosen family. The legal proceedings had continued for months, with Patricia eventually pleading guilty to embezzlement, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. She'd been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 5 years. Sophia had chosen not to attend the sentencing hearing, feeling that closure didn't require witnessing Patricia's punishment. Anthony Torino had received a life sentence without parole, as had several other members of his organization. The evidence Vincent had collected had been so comprehensive that most defendants had chosen to plead guilty rather than face trial. The FBI had called it one of the most significant organized crime prosecutions in decades. Emma's relationship with the truth had evolved as she'd grown older and better able to understand the complexities of her family's history. Sophia and Marcus had decided to be honest with her, age-appropriately, rather than risk her discovering lies later. Emma had handled each revelation with remarkable maturity, asking thoughtful questions and expressing pride in her family's courage. "I think it's cool that our family is like a movie," she'd told Sophia recently. "Most kids just have boring grandparents who play golf. We have a secret agent great-great-grandfather and a grandmother who was in witness protection." Now, as Sophia watched her daughter play in their backyard on this quiet Sunday afternoon, she reflected on how dramatically their lives had changed. The simple DNA test that was supposed to reveal ethnic heritage had instead uncovered a legacy of courage, sacrifice, and justice that would influence Emma's understanding of herself for the rest of her life. Marcus approached with a plate of freshly grilled burgers, his face relaxed in a way Sophia had rarely seen during the first 8 years of their marriage. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, settling beside her on their patio chairs. "Just how strange life is. If your mother hadn't sent that DNA kit, we might have lived our entire lives without knowing all of this. Do you regret knowing?" Sophia considered the question seriously. Their lives had been simpler before the truth came out, but they'd also been built on foundations of secrets and lies. Now, despite the trauma and upheaval, they have something more valuable, a relationship based on complete honesty and acceptance. "No," she said finally, "I don't regret it.
Emma deserves to know where she comes from, all of it, the good and the bad and the complicated. Marcus nodded, reaching over to take her hand. Besides, I like this version of you better. You're stronger now, more confident. It's like learning about Vincent gave you permission to be fearless. Sophia squeezed his hand, watching Emma attempt an elaborate trick on the swing set. Maybe. Or maybe I was always this strong, and I just needed to discover it. As the sun set over their Phoenix neighborhood, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Sophia realized that Patricia's birthday gift had indeed been a trap, but not the kind Patricia had intended. It had been a trap that caught a family in the web of their own hidden strength, forcing them to confront truths that ultimately set them free. Sometimes the most dangerous gifts are the ones that reveal the truth. And sometimes the truth is exactly what a family needs to finally become whole. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.